Hello, hello, hello. So my producer forgot that we were supposed to play the video as the intro. I was surprised to see y'all. Like, oh, hello. Let's play that video right. Hi, my name is Kisha Brown, and I am the founder and CEO of Justice Connection. And I am proud to be building the premier lawyer and legal referral service for you. Black women are one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs in the United States. Yet despite our hustle, it's been challenging for Black women to raise capital. Since 2018, for Black and Latinx women, we've only raised 0.64, that's right, 0.64% of all venture capital funding. That's why I decided to come to my community, the Justice Connection community and family. We are better off having access to solid legal counsel. It makes our community stronger, our families more secure. We're able to defend ourselves if anything should arise. It's important to have someone who can relate to you, understand your background, and is culturally competent to handle your issues. I started this journey because I was always asked for a legal referral. Kisha, can you find somebody who does criminal law? Can you find somebody who does family law? Sometimes it would take me hours, sometimes days to make that connection. And I felt like, one, as Black lawyers, we were leaving our communities most vulnerable by not having a concerted network that connected us. And quite frankly, businesses and corporations who were looking to diversify their ranks didn't know where to go. I knew tons of Black lawyers, still do, and now I know more than ever before. I've been building this database from scratch since 2018, piece by piece, putting things together in order to ensure that we were making the legal matchmaking process most efficient and effective, utilizing new innovative technology to enhance the customer experience. Justice Connection is more than just a platform. It is a resource that you can go to for advice, for tips, to connect with the best Black lawyers out there. And so we're building this for you. It's important for us to be able to be competitive in this market. We need to get the word out by connecting with communities, churches, sororities, fraternities, businesses, local and enterprises. It's important for us to stay ahead of the game as far as creating innovative technology. We're set on utilizing the most recent artificial intelligence and natural language processing to make sure that the legal matchmaking process is efficient and effective. We're also looking to build out our team. And so brick by brick, we are committed. We are committed to bringing you solid legal resources and solid legal referrals. So I just want to thank you all for considering Justice Connection. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Subscribe on our website at www.justisconnection.com. Thank you to the entire team and everyone who's lifted us up in prayer and continues to support us. We want to continue to support you as well. We want to keep you informed in the Justice Connection family so that you know where to go if and when you need legal resources. Hello, good evening again. It's me, Kisha Brown. I'm proud to be your host this evening for the Black Lawyers Roundtable. And we've got a great episode planned. We've got the amazing Isaac Trouth the fourth joining us this evening. And he is a master lawyer who focuses on criminal law, personal injury, especially auto accidents. But before we get into it with Isaac, I want to talk about a couple of areas where I want you to start to think about I want you to consider before you get to that hiring of a lawyer stage, right? Oftentimes somebody might say, you need a lawyer, girl, right? But you need to make sure that you're thinking about some things before you take that step. And one of those things is this going to cost you more money to do it yourself, right? Some things you can DIY. I'm not going to lie. I have a good friend. She DIY'd her whole basement, right? She changed the flooring. She literally ripped out the ceiling. She did the wallpaper. She redesigned with the furniture. She did it all. She DIY'd her own space, which is great. She had the time during the shutdown, the quarantine, and now she's got a beautiful little oasis down in her basement. But that's not the case for everything, right? Sometimes we need to recognize that time is money and money is time. So is handling my case, my situation myself, going to take up so much more of my time that quite frankly, it would have been more cost effective to hire somebody to handle this for me so that I can focus the time that I have on whether it's healing, whether it's getting your affairs in order, your job, or just living your life, right? And that's where a lawyer, you got to make that choice, right? Time is money, money is time. Is it worth me taking time away from all the things that you got to do anyways, right? To handle this situation, or is it better to employ someone who this is their expertise, this is their lane where they shine and they know what to do and they can handle it on your behalf? So that's just one of the considerations I want you to keep in mind. I have a couple of others that I've put together in a really easy downloadable, so you don't have to take notes on that at all. You can just go to our website and within 15 seconds, I think it pops up. And so feel free, it's free to just download. And it's just a list of top 4 things I think you should consider when hiring an attorney. So now we've set the stage and we can bring Mr. Trouth over to join us in this conversation. So let's see, should I have a little drum roll? Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Good evening. So how are things going?
Things are going well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So let me share, right? Can I share with them how we met?
Sure.
So I've known Isaac for a long time, like practically my entire legal career, right? So when I started out, I had the honor of working at the Legal Aid Bureau where I represented non-custodial parents who owed large child support arrears. So one episode, y'all, we might do some child support talk, okay? But back in the day, and from the minute that I had the opportunity to bring folks on and to bring mentees on and interns, I did so. I know that I had very valuable experiences throughout my academic career, and I appreciated them, and I wanted to be able to, give others the opportunity to do so as well. And so Isaac was one of my first interns back in the day.
Wow. I did not know I was one of the first.
Yeah, you were one of the first. Well, I think you were my second year, I think. Yeah. So that means, we've been practicing, you've been practicing law a long time because you're not a newbie at this, because that was a long time ago. Right?
No comment, because I'm not going to age anyone.
Right. He is not. Let me tell you, sometimes it's like, wait a second, because, you think of yourself as like, well, I do think, right? You're like, I'm so young, I still got it, right? But then in the legal realm of things, you've been practicing quite some time. You are not considered a young lawyer any longer.
That is true. In my mind, I think I'm a young lawyer. I actually I think I'm almost aging out of the young lawyers division of the Bar Association right now.
I feel like one of those indicators is when, like, for the bar associations where they're like, if you've been practicing 5 years or under, right, it's one price. And if you've been practicing another month, you're like,
I've reached that. I've reached that top tier price.
Right. And you're like, oh, I guess I have been practicing a good amount of time. Yeah. So I don't do bio readings because I find them boring personally. So I'm just going to ask you, 1, to tell us where you went to law school, and then 2, to share why you went to law school. Like what drove you to be a lawyer, and what are you passionate about in the law?
Okay. I went to the University of Baltimore School of Law, which I had a wonderful time there, and I really enjoyed that experience. What drove me to go to law school? That's a loaded question. So my brother was killed my senior year in college, and it kind of was a personal challenge to me to just I kind of had taken myself away from what was going on the university campus, and I just needed something to put my energy into. And it kind of was a personal challenge to me because I had did a study abroad program with a law program on it, and I really thought that that would be something that I would want to do, but it wasn't something that I thought I could do. And it kind of just became a personal challenge to me to do it. And I put all my energy and effort into it, and it worked out.
Got it. So did you go straight from undergrad to law school?
I did. So I went straight from undergrad to law school.
Okay. So you overcame your own adversity by pouring yourself into the law, right? And you said kind of putting it forth as a challenge to yourself. But you stayed, right? You not only stayed in the law, but you built your own practice.
Yes.
What continues to drive you as a lawyer to do the work that you do?
Well, right now, I love government. I love how laws work, how they're made. Just the nerd in me loves how the whole process works, how you can change the law within the law and what you can do to do that. So I just love doing that. I also just love working with people and kind of helping them reach their solutions or helping them to get the best outcomes, especially dealing with someone who may be in a bad situation that I can just kind of help. That always just gives me a sense of satisfaction to be able to help someone else. And this is a way to do that.
All right, cool. Thank you for sharing that. So you have built your own practice. Well, first, let me just say that you also had, before you built your own practice, you were in the prosecutor's office. Is that correct?
Yes, I was so I started out, I actually majored in undergrad in management information systems. So part of that is kind of how I knew a little bit about how to start a business. But going from there, I went to law school to say, okay, it was an incremental thing. It was I majored in management information systems. I'm not supposed to go to law school, but I've always wanted to go to law school. It just was like one of those things I was like, I'm not trying to spend all that time and energy to do it. So finally, it's like, I'm going to do it. So I told everyone that I wanted to do technology transfers. And that was what I wanted to do. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but it made sense to people when I was telling them why I wanted to go to law school.
That's smart.
They were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You can do that. But at the end of the day, I kind of just wanted to go to law school to learn the law. And once I got in there, I actually had an evidence teacher, Lynn McLean. And in that class, that's kind of when I fell in love with litigation. And once I that was my first year of law school, and just learning kind of the rules of evidence, which are actually the most important thing that you could know as a litigator. Knowing the law is great, but you can kind of, learn the law specific to your case, and you can prepare for that. It's hard to prepare for the rules of evidence because that's what comes at you on the fly. And that's what you have to know off the top of your head in the moment to be able to handle a trial. So going through that process, I just kind of fell in love with litigation from there. And it was more so, what job can I get where I'm in the courtroom every single day? And from there, I actually was working with a job fair. I put on a job fair for other students in Philadelphia. And while I was putting on a job fair for other students, I had a prosecutor's office say to me, well, are you interviewing with anyone? I was like, oh no, it's my second year. I'm gonna get there soon. They were like, no, come. So it was actually Cuyahoga County prosecutor's office who I had someone who was there who had met me that I was putting on a job fair, and they kind of talked to me about being a prosecutor and what that meant. And then I ended up kind of settling because it seems to be, I guess, through the National Black Prosecutors Association and everyone knowing everyone, ended up getting a job offer at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. So I received that probably the summer before my third year, which is always good when you're in law school to have a job that early, because it's like that sense of relaxation when it comes to I don't have to stress about that, and I can focus just on the rest of my third year and enjoy that process. So got the job at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, and that's how I got into the prosecutor's office.
Cool.
So I was there for about almost 2 years before coming back to Maryland.
Gotcha. Home, sweet home.
Yes. Philadelphia was a process. That was the boot camp. And that was probably the most defining experience that I had as a lawyer, because we were in court every day. We handled 100 cases. Half of them went to trial. And we were handling, also they did what's called preliminary hearings instead of grand juries. So we did a lot of those on very serious cases, and we did them out in the community. So we were in the police district. So there were so many different things that we were experiencing being in the community, kind of prosecuting very high level, or doing the initial appearances and preliminary hearings on very high level felony and violent crime cases. So it's kind of a baptism by fire in terms of just being a lawyer at that early stage of your career. So yes.
Well, so you mentioned something though, speaking in that criminal realm. You mentioned about the rules of evidence, right? And oftentimes, I thought that was such a great point that you raised, because, that's something that you can't really learn about your lawyer from an initial interview. So I want folks to hear a little bit about, what are like the rules of evidence, and can you share an example?
The rules of evidence it's basically the rules that say what evidence can come in and what evidence does not come in. So what evidence is a jury allowed to hear, and what evidence are they not allowed to hear? All relevant evidence is generally admissible, but there are rules around how you have to present that evidence to protect the individual party. So in a criminal case, generally is to protect the accused. Part of that is hearsay. You should always have the ability to ask someone a question and be able to cross-examine them about their answer. So if you have a hearsay, that means that you're telling me what someone else says, and I don't have the opportunity to cross-examine that individual and kind of let the jury see their demeanor, see how they're saying what they're saying, for them to be able to judge the credibility of that person. So that's kind of one of the hearsay rules, and there are a lot of exceptions to that. So I may have someone that comes into my office to say, they sent me this text message and it said this. Well, there's a lot of avenues that you have to go in through to get that text message in, for the jury to be able to even see that text message. You can't just come to court and say, I have a printout of a text message. There's,
I printed them out myself.
Right. So depending on if it's criminal or it's civil, there are different rules on how you would do that, because how do we know you didn't send the text message to yourself and then print it out? Was that information doctored? Did you have access to the person's phone? Is there some type of context surrounding that text message? Is the date on it or the time on that text message accurate? So all of that is information that the rules of evidence will account for, and there's certain things that a lawyer has to do to make sure that the integrity of the information that we're presenting to the court is there.
Yeah,
so that's what the rules of evidence are.
No, that's great for sharing, and I love that you chose hearsay, because good and well everybody out there be in the middle of their own conversation at the dinner table, and they'd be like, you can't say that because that's hearsay. Right. That's probably, I feel like, one of the most used legal phrases that people just throw out there. Like, you can't use that because it's hearsay. Hearsay this, hearsay that. Right. But I think one of the things that One, a lawyer knows how to use hearsay. And I hope folks heard Isaac say there are a number of exceptions to hearsay, right?
And they differ from state to state.
They differ.
Because I've practiced in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Pennsylvania, and the hearsay rules can differ from state to state.
Wow. And, a lot of folks don't know that, right? Like doctors technically can be a doctor in any 50 of the states, dentists, same thing. But lawyers, you just can't go from state to state and practice law, open up shop, because we take a bar exam for each state, right? And so the laws vary from state to state. Don't ask me why. We got to have all the federal laws, then we got the state laws, then we got the local laws. We're a big hybrid hodgepodge. And for lawyers, this is getting to the value that lawyers bring, right? Because there's a depth of knowledge, right? And being able to know sort of what court, what jurisdiction, what level of law, what rules and regulations, what applies to your situation. And it's not always just as clear cut as we think, like, oh, the law says this. A good lawyer knows, right, that there are often many layers to the law. And like Isaac said, it's not just the law, it's how you use the rules, right? And in particular, as he mentioned, the rules of evidence are a huge factor in most cases. So a question did come in, which was, what are the best ways to prepare for a case when you don't have prior knowledge of legal practices? So I'm guessing that this person is not a lawyer and they're looking to represent themselves. And by the way, folks, you might hear lawyers often say the words pro se, and a person was in court pro se, and pro se basically means that person is representing, they're self-represented. Right? Pro se means self-represented. So when a person is representing themselves, or when they're going before the court pro se, I guess they're asking, what are the best ways that they can prepare for a case? And I guess it really depends. Let's think about something, you can pick any area. It doesn't, matter. You can pick any area of law. Isaac, that maybe you have a tip or two that you can share.
I mean, I would say the best way to prepare for a case is to try to find an attorney. That's the best way to prepare. Honestly, even if I have my own situation, I wouldn't represent myself because emotions can be involved when it's you, and you need someone who can kind of take that out of it and see it from a different perspective. And I guess it matters as to what you have to lose, if it's money or if it's your freedom. But the best thing you can do is research how you can get a lawyer. And if there's a financial issue with that, research what avenues you can go through to try to get help with that. Are there any, in terms of legal aid, if there's a house of roof, if there's a situation with domestic violence, or a lot of bar associations will have lawyer referral services where they may do.
We're not sending people to the bar association for lawyer referral.
No,
they don't go right.
What I'm saying is,
we're gonna look at the name right here. Justice Connection. All right.
But what I'm really trying to say is, it is never a good idea to represent yourself. At all. Even if you are an attorney, it's not a good idea to represent yourself. It's just absolutely not. I've seen a lot of horror stories where it's been done, and there are things that you may have won the case, or the outcome may have been different because you don't even know what to ask for. And I would say hire an attorney who has experience in that jurisdiction, in that courthouse, because different judges, the temperament of one judge may be different from a temperament of another judge. That may be some information that your attorney may have that could help you. So I just would not recommend representing yourself at any time.
Good advice. Good advice. I was interviewing a judge on Tuesday, and literally that was her first advice, right? When a similar question was asked, her first advice was, I recommend that you don't represent yourself and that you get an attorney, right? And
Right.
I mean, that's a big reason why I created Justice Connection, right? Because there are so many amazing Black lawyers, and wanted to have an easier way for people to be able to connect and find one. And not everybody is, $800 an hour, and not everybody is $80 an hour. Folks are mainly in between, and whether if you cannot afford one, right? In criminal cases, one can be assigned to you. There's the Legal Aid Bureau where we both worked at, as you mentioned, but you also need to, sometimes we don't think we can afford a lawyer, and so we don't engage the process. And so what I encourage folks to do first is engage the process, engage a lawyer before you consider them too expensive. Because I think you'll be surprised, right, on the value that you're getting. And as Isaac said, you got to really think about it, what's at risk, right? Is it a sizable amount of money? Is it your freedom? Is it custody of your children? Right? Is it your home? There are so many different areas where you got to make those decisions, right? And what's best for you and for your family.
And if you're on this platform, I would definitely say you need to talk to attorney Kisha Brown, because part of what people don't understand is a lawyer practicing in a particular courthouse matters. And you want access to that information. That is the biggest question you should ask your lawyer is, do you practice in the courthouse that my case will be in? That will give you a leg up, because that attorney kind of knows the different customs of that courthouse and how things are done. So it would be helpful to you. And not to say because they don't, it's not, because we can always call someone and find out. But it was always going to be helpful to you to at least make sure that they have some familiarity with the courthouse that they're going to be in, or they're just an expert in that field. So if someone's an expert in that field, then they can contact someone in that courthouse to get the customs. And if someone's in that courthouse, they can contact an expert to help them. But if you don't have either one, then you're going to be at a disadvantage even hiring a lawyer. So that's the biggest thing you want to look at when you hire lawyers. The practice area that your case is going to be in. Does the person practice in that area? And then the second one is, do they practice in the courthouse where your case will be heard?
Great points. Great points. Thanks so much for making that very clear. I do want to also add to the person who asked about preparing, right? Don't go to your cousin Vinny. But I do want to also note one of the things that you can do to prepare for your case, you don't need to have any legal quote unquote knowledge, is to keep good records, right? So that when you do hire an attorney, you have something to give them that they can use to help build support around your case, right? So oftentimes we think we got everything up here, right? We remember everything and the memory is so clear, but you want to make sure that you're keeping those documents, those emails, those texts, those correspondences. You want to keep as much documentation as possible and hold on to that, right? So that you can give that to your lawyer.
I mean, I practice a lot of criminal law. So I'm not going to comment on whether you should keep documents or records of what you're doing. It just depends on the circumstances. I'm not going to comment on how that business is done.
All right, y'all heard that. Y'all read between the lines, right? You got to use your own discernment in keeping documentation. But I will say, so we talked about sort of you've been in this, you were a prosecutor, and now, like you said, you're doing criminal cases. Can you share with us, obviously without giving the details, but one of your most sort of impactful criminal cases that you were involved with, whether it was back in the day on the prosecutor side, especially looking at it from, I think sometimes most folks, their experience with the criminal justice, with the criminal courts and so forth is TV, right? And what court cases look like on a variety of different shows. I know my grandmother watches every judge show there is. It drives me crazy, right? So folks have their own version sort of what happens in the courtroom. And so if you could share, like I asked, just an example of a case that you had that either way, whether in private practice or when you're a prosecutor, that was impactful to you.
Okay, there are a lot of cases that I've handled a lot of cases. I literally was a prosecutor for almost 11 years. And then I've been on the defense for a while now, about 3 years now. The biggest cases aren't always the most impactful, but the most impactful cases to me are now I've done a lot of cases where juveniles have been charged as adults.
Oh, man.
And those cases are the most impactful because I get to have an impact. I handle a lot of juvenile cases, but when they're charged as an adult, it kind of weighs on you a little bit, because part of that process is one, trying to get them back to juvenile court, and trying to convince the court that they should be treated as juveniles. So that is one those cases are always very, very impactful when you're dealing with juveniles charged as adults.
Wow. So I didn't, I'm glad you shared that. I didn't realize that you handle those cases, right? Because those are really special. And I think it's important for everyone listening. And I'll give a hello to June Perry. Thanks for joining this evening. That we in this country allow children, right? Because juveniles are children, right? And I think that sometimes we use language that covers and shifts, right, the perspective. And I want folks to think about that we in this country allow, especially Black children, to be charged and prosecuted as adults, right? And you got to think about the 12-year-old, the 13-year-old, the 14-year-old, the 15-year-old, the 16-year-old, the 17-year-old, those in your life, your cousins, your neighbors' kids, your nieces and nephews, and think about them as they are as teenagers, right, as children, as the young people in your churches and in your neighborhoods and in our schools, and that we allow the institution of the courts to take them into a system that is designed for adults, and we can talk about what it's actually designed for as well, and to be tried under a system that imputes a certain level of knowing, right, as an adult onto these children. So
yes, I was
thoughts on that overall, especially since you brought that up.
Well, I guess just to get some stats, in Maryland, once you turn 16, if you're charged with a violent felony or any type of gun charge, you are presumed to be an adult, and you are charged as an adult automatically. You go through that process at 16. At 14, anything that could give you the possibility of life in prison, you are presumed to be an adult, and you're charged as an adult in that system. It's a crazy. I literally just had a trial, actually during the pandemic, probably a few weeks ago, where we had my client actually was at home, and there was a no-knock warrant executed on her home. She was 16, and she actually grabbed a firearm when, the door was bust down and went down. And then it ended up being the police. It was that the situation was de-escalated immediately, but they charged her as an adult for basically possessing her mother's firearm in her home to defend herself against the no-knock warrant. Sounds kind of similar, but that did just happen. And I just had a trial on that. First, she had to go through the adult process where she was charged as an adult, and we had to get a full report from juvenile services and bring in a lot of different witnesses to present to the court why she should be charged as a juvenile. And fortunately, the court agreed with me, and she was sent back down to juvenile court after a few months being in an adult court. And then after that, we ended up having a trial in juvenile court where she was found, I guess they don't call it not guilty, but she was found not guilty of the entire case. But that whole process can be traumatic to a child. And it is definitely a tough thing. I don't know about the policy implications on how to handle that. I do know that there are some jurisdictions that will charge you as a juvenile, and then the prosecutor will look at it, and then they'll make the determination whether or not they feel it's in the society's best interest to try to have them removed to adult court. I think that's probably the better way to do it, instead of just automatically charging them as adults and then we have to fight to get them back down.
Yeah.
I think it would be better if we charged anyone under 18 as a juvenile. And then if the prosecutor wanted to make that decision, and let them put forward the case to the court, as opposed to putting it on the shoulders of the defense to make that argument.
Right.
But
that's
is
a great
the way it's done.
I'm going to have to do a little bit of research on sort of what are the efforts in Maryland to change that, right? I had no idea that it was so automatic, and that we, engage 14 and 16-year-olds in the way that we are. Next week, we actually have Delegate Vanessa Atterbury, who will be joining us. She serves on the Judicial Committee in the House in Maryland's legislature, and the legislature is still in session. So that might be a question that we bring to her, whether that's something they're looking into this session, either why or why not.
Yeah. I mean, I would say especially just the firearm charges, because technically those are misdemeanors. So I don't know why they charge those as an adult. That one makes no sense to me, but that's the way it's done right now.
Yeah, no, and I will say, one of the things that when I started working in the state legislature, when I was director of legislative affairs for the Maryland Attorney General, it was, really for me being exposed at how these laws, come together like sausage, right? All types of stuff just coming together, and oftentimes, quite frankly, without rhyme or reason. Some things there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. But there's also a lot of politics at play. And at the end of the day, as you said, right, these are kids' lives, and it can be very traumatic for them. And a lot of work unnecessarily to bring them from an adult system back into a system they belonged, which was the juvenile system. Yeah, no, thank you for those insights. Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to shift gears a little bit because you also handle cases dealing with auto accidents. And myself, I done been in enough auto accidents, y'all. Please, I hope to never be in another one again. So if you out there have been in an auto accident, let us know in the comments if you hired an attorney or if you worked directly with your insurance company. But for my cases, the cases that I had worked with an attorney, I received a settlement. The cases I did not work with an attorney, I did not receive a settlement, right? And, sometimes even it wasn't even about me being at fault or the other person being at fault, but I think I probably would have benefited from having an attorney's advice even before talking to the insurance carrier, right, for any accident. And that, my friends, is where it's so important to be able to know where to go when you need an attorney, right? Because you want to be, if you're ever in unfortunate circumstance of being in an auto accident, you want to be able to speak with an attorney, whether you believe it was your fault or not, right? And have that first conversation be with someone who is thinking about what happened and can advise you in a way that, quite frankly, the insurance company will not. Right? What would you say, Isaac, is one of the things that probably frustrates you the most sometimes when you are contacted by someone and you say to yourself, man, I wish you had contacted me first. What is the scenario that you are usually thinking that around when you're like, dang, if you had only contacted me first?
The biggest thing is if you're ever in an automobile accident, or if an automobile is involved and you are injured, you should take records, take pictures, get everyone's information, and contact an attorney. The biggest thing that I hear is someone will get in an auto accident and you say, well, why didn't you contact an attorney? I say, because I wasn't driving. And it does not matter if you are the driver, if you're a passenger in the vehicle, if you're a pedestrian, all of that, you may be entitled to a settlement or some type of compensation. So just because you were not the driver, or the other driver didn't have insurance, or all of that is things that a lawyer can kind of help you navigate through that process.
Great advice. Great advice. And I wish, so I hope everybody heard that out there and, listening land, because you don't have to, reiterate, you don't have to have been the driver to even make that call. And quite frankly, you're not being charged for that initial conversation when you contact someone and say, hey, I've been in an auto accident. The lawyer's going to let you know when the ticker is started. Right. So don't be scared or hesitant to reach out, because you think the minute that lawyer picks up the phone, now you have to start paying. Right.
Absolutely.
And how can you share with folks for auto accidents in particular, what the payment agreements usually are?
So generally there would be a percentage of any settlement. And that generally it's a third of whatever the settlement is, or if there's a trial, it could be slightly higher. And that's usually what it is. But what we'll try to do is try to work with you, try to work on making sure that, try to keep your expenses down, or try to make sure that it accounts for everything. So the way we kind of formulate any type of settlement, it takes into account our fee, it takes into account your expenses. And then we'll still try to make sure that you have some type of compensation for yourself for just all of the injuries that you were suffered and the emotional injuries and all of that as well. So that's usually what it is. Sometimes I look and say, oh, you're taking a third, but it's more involved in just taking a third, because there's the attorney's compensation, there's a compensation to the individuals who are helping you get back to 100%, being the doctors and any other type of expenses you had with hospital bills, medical bills, anything like that. But then there's also the stress that this caused you, and that's where that comes in.
Right. So let me make sure that we got this clear. Right. So there's no upfront costs. You're paid through the settlement you're saying that you secure for your client.
Yeah, generally, yes.
Okay. That's good to know, because again, that should be sort of, we can all take just a little extra breath of relief, right? That when you're in an auto accident, the first thing you don't have to think about is, how am I going to pay an attorney to help me? The first thing you can do is make that call, and the attorney usually recovers their fees, their expenses from your overall settlement. So that doesn't come directly out of your pocket.
Correct.
Perfect. So let me ask, with auto accidents, just another question around that, because again, I myself have been in several. So it's horrible. It's not my fault. Other people on the road. The DMV has such bad traffic, though, such bad traffic. Although in Florida, I swear every billboard in Florida is around auto accident. Everything in Florida is around auto accidents. I got to do some research on what are the rates of accidents in Florida, because these folks must be racking up down here or banging up. I don't know. It's a mess.
their level of negligence may be different, so that may
Mm.
be why you see Maryland is a contributory negligence state. So,
What does that mean?
well, that means that if you are partially at fault, you could lose the entire case, but it just all depends. That's where a lawyer can kind of come in and assess kind of the level of fault that we believe that each party may have incurred, and kind of assess your case that way.
Yeah.
But I guess in Florida, some states are what you call comparative negligence, where the judgment is just reduced by your percentage of at fault. So those may be some states we see way more billboards for attorneys in that area.
Got it. So on the comparative negligence, you and I get into a car accident and I'm 70% at fault and you're found to be 30% at fault. Is that pretty much where the demarcation of sort of the compensation would be as well?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Whereas contributory negligence is if I had any fault in regards to the accident, then then I'm not entitled to any settlement.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So contributory versus comparative, y'all. Two different kinds of standards for auto accidents, and it depends on what your state is. Right? It really depends.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what was I saying about? It just left me, but that's okay. It was about auto accidents, but it'll come back to me. So when you have these, I think it had to do with the fact that, I was going to say, oftentimes people forget that lawyers don't know everything about every law, right? And that we have our lanes, right? We have those things that we are most versed in, and the other things we ask other lawyers. And so, like I said, I've been in accidents and I've had to employ other lawyers. And when I did, I was better off for it. And when I didn't, I wish I had. Right. So I'll just leave it with that. But we're getting a little bit close to the hour. So I want folks to be able to feel free to be able to share ask any questions that they might have, or give any comments that they have about either criminal law or auto accidents. So Isaac, what is it that you see yourself? How do you see you and your firm? What's your vision for you and practicing the law, 10 years from now?
The vision is expansion, kind of bringing together lawyers in the area, partnering up and kind of expanding and being able to offer a full service to the community that we're in, so that it's kind of like your one-stop shop. You have a lawyer that can handle all your needs. So that's the ultimate goal, is to kind of have that place where the community can come to, and they know that whatever their legal needs are, that somebody in there is going to be able to handle their matter.
I love that. And let me tell you, y'all, Isaac and I are excited to be working together. He's a member of the Justice Connection Network. Obviously, you can contact him with his information that's been scrolling throughout the show. But I share his vision, right? And want to support him in his vision. And we as a community will be so much better off when our Isaacs are able to grow, right? And be able to provide even deeper and broader services for the community, right? So when you think about where you want to go to get a lawyer, or who you should hire for a lawyer, think about Justice Connection, right? And be able to connect with Isaac. And quite frankly, you can take his information down this evening so that you can get in contact with him whenever. Because quite frankly, we don't know if and when we may be in a car accident in particular. But it is good to have somebody that you can go to. And quite frankly, you can count right now Isaac as someone that you have heard, that you've seen, that you can say, oh, you know who you should call, or who I'm going to call, and then have that recollection, because you know what he's about. And his track record has shown that he can deliver. So I definitely am excited for you, Isaac, as you
Thank you.
grow in your firm and your practice, and I can see it, and you're being able to hire other attorneys and really be a pillar in the community. And we need that. The community will be better off because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We did get a question about where did you go to undergrad?
I graduated from Winston-Salem State University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
Also attended North Carolina A&T State University. I say that's where I had fun, and Winston-Salem State University is where I really gained my educational wings.
Okay. Did you go to any football games when you were at North Carolina A&T?
I did in both. I was actually in the marching band at Winston-Salem State University.
You were? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me find out you was in the band. What did you play?
I played the drums.
I should have known. Drums are always one of the coolest spots, right? You got the sax folks, you got the drummers. Those are where the cool folks are, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I went to a school that did not have a marching band. So I watched ATL and felt like I was a part of something. I was like, this is what I've been missing. So
it is a fun experience. We actually just came from down there. Just like to go back from time to time. It's just such a nice place to be in terms of to kind of relax and slow down.
Yeah. I can imagine it's nostalgic for you, and you can have your flashbacks back into your college days.
Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff. We'll definitely share with everyone where they can contact you and follow you and see what you're up to.
Yes, you can reach me. Phone number is 301-494-1275. Attorney Trouth Instagram, or you can reach me at my website at trouthlawgroup.com.
Perfect. There you have it. And we'll let the ticker go by so folks can get that last bit of screenshot. If you just hit print screen, y'all, you can just capture it all right there. Just hit print screen.
There.
My computer says print screen. Not everybody says print screen on it. It's like function 8. But no, this has been a great show. I'm so excited to have Isaac as a part of the network. As I mentioned, Justice Connection is the only Black lawyer referral and legal resource platform in the country. And so we're long overdue, right, as Black lawyers to come together and just be able to present ourselves to our own community, individuals, businesses, and enterprises alike, right? Black lawyers do it all. Auto accidents, criminal law, felony murders, misdemeanors, juvenile cases, personal injury, cyber law, all of it, family, taxes, bankruptcy. It is amazing the depth of knowledge and expertise that is in our legal community, right? And so I want you to also think about when you are at your church, when you're at your fraternity meeting, your sorority meeting, your civic group meeting, the links, all y'all, and you always have speakers and panelists. Think about lawyers, right? Think about bringing on a Black lawyer to be that subject matter expert who can share with you and your community. And we're happy to make those connections for you at Justice Connection and be able to connect you with Black lawyers who can speak to your group, be able to give free legal information to your audience. And that's a value that we need to do more of, right? We want to be in the community as Black lawyers. When Thurgood Marshall, came out, Isaac, it was something where, Black folks were like, hey, good to see you. You are a lawyer. What we coming to you, brother, right? And Thurgood came out and he said, Black people, I'm here. What is it that we need, right? What do you need to do? And that has traditionally been the role of the Black lawyer, to be that, that safeguard, to be the guardian, to be the defender, the protector of our community as it relates to the law. And we need it now more than ever, right? We've needed it every single minute we've been in this country. And we're committed as Black lawyers to be here on behalf of our community. And so we thank you, Isaac, for your time this evening, for you sharing your knowledge, for being candid with us, and making yourself available to the greater community this evening. So we thank you very much.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks. So I encourage everyone to tune in next week as well. Feel free on blackusa.news or Justice Connection Facebook page to provide any feedback, any comments that you might have, share with us any questions that you might have or information around what you might need to know in the law as it pertains to your group that you might want someone to give a presentation around, or whether you yourself have legal questions. Feel free to reach out. Always here, doors always open. And next week, as I mentioned, we'll be joined by Delegate Vanessa Atterbury. She is a delegate here in Maryland State Legislature. She's a leader in the Judicial House Committee. And so we're going to be asking her some questions around, because she's a lawyer, right? And we're often talking with lawyers on one aspect of the law. But remember, these laws are made by people, right? They're made by people that we elect. And so wanted to be able to have a conversation with someone who was involved in that process to give us some insider information, and we can give them some feedback and answer some questions. So with that, we'll sign off. Thank you again, Isaac. Thank you, everybody, this evening for joining us at the Black Lawyers Roundtable. I'm Kisha Brown, and signing off for the evening. Take care, everyone.